I would like first to dispel false views about individual and small shareholders. Of course, individual shareholders, as Jeroen said, are not so important these days. If you look at this data from a very interesting research report we did between the Commission and the FSUG, the Financial Services User Group of the Commission, it's called Who Owns the European Economy? And you see that 40 years ago, individual share ownership, they owned almost 40% of the listed economy. Now it's down to 13%. And of course, packaged intermediated products now take a bigger share. If you look only at investment funds, they went from nearly nothing to 25%. This has consequences. First one, if you were overlapping this chart of the previous one, you can see that the links between individual shareholders who are by nature and by objective long-term investors, the link between those and companies have been severed. And that's why Jeroen Ooyer said himself that short-termism is still there. In fact, it's never been so much there, as you can see. So why does individual share ownership matter despite its smaller share today? First thing, there are long-term co-owners of listed companies in Europe because their investment savings objectives are long-term. And this, in fact, applies not only to individual shareholders, but to retail investors in general, because more than 90% of their savings are invested long-term. First, there is property, real estate, which is the biggest share. But even if you look at financial savings, more than 60% is invested long-term. Also, contrary to a common view, individual shareholders tend to be less risk-averse than so-called institutional investors. They are twice as more active on the small and mid-cap markets, primary and secondary market, as they are on the blue chips. As I said, they still have quite a significant share of their portfolio in equities, either directly or indirectly. Insurance companies in Europe nowadays, it's around 5% of their portfolio only. More interesting, recent academic research shows that individual shareholders tend to be contrarians. You know, we often hear that, they sell when the market goes down, they buy when the market goes up. It's exactly the contrary. Unlike institutional investors who, on average, tend to be momentum investors. Of course, that improves markets liquidity, and that's why brokers and stock exchanges still love to get retail flows, although they are smaller than before. Lastly, the Capital Market Union initiative recognizes rightly the primary role of households in the financing of the economy. They provide directly or indirectly most of the funding to the real economy. And also the CMU talks about reviving the equity culture. So that's, again, I think why to pick today the role of shareholders as a theme is splendid. Because indeed we do need to have more direct links between savings of the households and the assets in which their funds are deployed. John Kay, that Jeroen also mentioned, said that, but also former EU Commissioner Hill said that when presenting the Capital Market Union initiative. Unfortunately, despite all this, we are often criticized for too little engagement, we individual shareholders. That is because it is not only a challenge, it is really a mess, sorry to say that, to try to engage in companies, exercise our voting rights, especially inside the EU when it becomes cross-border. Sorry, there are some typos, I see. What I meant to say is that the cross-border voting process within the EU is the most antiquated, fragmented, and ineffective process in the so-called financial services industry. I say so-called financial because this is not a financial process by any yardstick, but it is a monopoly of financial intermediaries right now. There seems to be a problem with the typing, because I have the right typing on my slide. So the key issues, the key obstacles and barriers to shareholder engagement, and we have a full report on our website on this if you are interested in details. First, we are often deprived from voting our shares cross-border inside the EU, although it's supposed to be a single market for capital. There is often no provision of the material, of the documentation available at your retail intermediary place. And often it is subject for the payment of a fee. So you have to pay a fee to vote 10 or 100 shares that you own from another EU domiciled company. So of course that is a huge deterrent. Also, too many shareholders are simply deprived of their voting rights as their holdings are lodged in nominee or omnibus accounts. For example, in the UK, about half of individual UK shareholders, their shares accounts are in nominee accounts. So they never get the voting material, they never get the voting rights. Lastly, not second to last, shareholder associations are not enough recognized in the EU and the EU member states because when you hold 10 shares with all these barriers for voting, it would be nice if your shareholder association could gather some shares and easily and effectively vote for you because then you feel you have more weight, of course. With 10 shares, often as an individual shareholder, you said, why bother? You know, if I vote or I don't vote, it's the same results. When I said it's the most antiquated, fragmented, and ineffective process, it goes as far as creating a big legal issue. For example, in France, by law, issuers can demand to get the list of non-resident share owners. If they don't get it, the votes of non-resident shareholders is invalid. Guess what? They don't get it. They get a list of intermediaries, foreign intermediaries, but that is not by any definition, legal definition or economic definition, the owners of the shares. So that's why you really need to do something about it. How am I doing with time, Julie? So I'm going quicker. So I'm going in the wrong direction here. Okay, we are trying to help with a Eurovote platform we created on our website many years ago, and we have now about 1,500 European issuers listed with the AGM date, access to the documents for the general meeting, and also mentioning where we send physical participation from our national member shareholder associations to general meetings. Unfortunately, because of this very ineffective, fragmented process I talked about, that's where we stop. We cannot get online the proxies from individual shareholders. It is a shame in the 21st century when everything now is done on your smartphone. We are very far away in terms of shareholder engagement and therefore of corporate governance in Europe. Very briefly, because I'm sure Jeroen will go back to this. This I skip because Jeroen talked about it. What are key demands vis-à-vis the shareholders' rights directive right now? And I will close there. First, we want cross-border cost-free voting. The EC proposal does not go far enough, and it's been, so from what we understand, Jeroen, being either further watered down by the Council and the Parliament. It only says, the proposal only says, if an intermediary charges you more for cross-border voting exercise than if you exercise your vote inside the member state, then they have to explain why. Okay, but that doesn't solve the problem. Second, there should be no discrimination in exercising shareholders' rights across border. And as I explained to you, there is today such discrimination. Lastly, on this slide, voting rights for the shares in nominee omnibus account should be given and should empower the real owners, the beneficial owners of these shares. Maybe we talk about the record date later because it's a bit more technical, but I think if we wanted our Eurovote platform, to be not only an information platform, but a real service platform to exercise your vote, you need only one thing, to provide electronically to beneficial owners your proof of ownership at record date. And that's done because that will be sufficient proof for the issuer to accept the votes at the general meeting. The right of association is very important. We have not enough recognition of the shareholder associations. By definition, they are not conflicted. Their life should be made easier by the member states and the European Commission. We have some other issues, but I will go very quickly. There is a big debate, as you know, on knowing your owners for issuers, and which is perfectly legitimate. But we don't see why this would be reserved to the issuers and not to their owners, their co-owners, who are the shareholders. So whatever information the issuer gets on shareholder identification should be made easily available as well to shareholder and shareholder associations. Also, I pointed out on this problem of EU non-resident identification. And also, you have our position on the remuneration policy. And I end very quickly with the last slide, because we didn't tap upon the other key issues in the Shareholders' Rights Directive. For example, we still are in favor of the one share, one vote, although we are open to incentives for longer holdings periods, like loyalty shares, but we stick to the one share, one vote principle, because if not, it is subject, as you may have seen, even by some member states, it may be the way to manipulate and abuse other shareholders' rights. And lastly, I was talking about the necessary recognition and help to true shareholder associations. We've been asking for years that, for example, with our Eurovote service, we should be exempted from the costly reporting and transparency constraints of commercial and professional proxy advisors, which obviously we are